You're done. Isabella, today the court finally ends your little fantasy. My brother Dominic's voice rang through the federal courtroom in Boston like he'd already won. He even adjusted his cufflinks while he said it, the same smug way he used to do when we were kids and he took the last slice of everything. Our parents sat right behind him in the front row. Mom was already crying into a monogrammed handkerchief, the tears looked expensive. Dad's jaw was locked in that familiar mix of disgust and triumph he'd perfected over the last 9 years. I stood quietly at the defendant's table in a plain black suit. Hands folded, waiting. The judge, Evelyn Carter, 62. Silver hair pulled tight, the kind of woman who can silence a room just by lifting an eyebrow, was signing the emergency order that would let my own family seize every share I owned in the company I'd built from nothing. She stopped mid-signature, actually mid-stroke, when her pen froze. She looked down at the filing again, then up at me, then back at the paperwork. Counsel, she said slowly, voice suddenly very quiet, this petition is against Quantum Shield Analytics, correct? Dominic's lawyer nodded, eager, yes, Your Honor. Judge Carter leaned back, eyes narrowing, the same Quantum Shield Analytics that was on the cover of Forbes. Last month? She let the question hang in the air like a guillotine. You could hear Dominic's confidence crack from 20 feet away. I allowed myself the tiniest breath. Because the truth is, they had no idea who they'd really dragged into this courtroom. And in about 30 minutes, every single one of them was going to find out. I didn't move, I just let the silence stretch until it felt like the whole room was holding its breath with me. Dominic shifted in his loafers. Mom's tears dried up real fast. Dad's knuckles went white on the railing. Judge Carter set her pen down with this soft little click that somehow sounded louder than the gavel ever could. She looked straight at me, not at my brother. Not at their lawyer, at me. Miss Harper, she said, using the name the world knows me by now. Before I rule on this emergency petition, I need to be absolutely certain I'm not about to make the biggest mistake of my 35 years on this bench. And that's when I knew. The funeral they thought they were attending? It was about to become theirs. But to understand how we got here, how my own blood dragged me into federal court to try to steal everything I'd built. You have to go back 9 years, to the night I told my family I was dropping out of Harvard Business to start a company that didn't even have a name yet. I was 22, standing in the dining room of our Beacon Hill brownstone, the one with the original crown molding and the chandelier that cost more than most people's cars. Dad was at the head of the table, carving the prime rib like he was performing surgery. Mom was already 3 glasses into the Pinot. Dominic, 26, freshly engaged to a Cabot, was scrolling real estate listings on his phone. Planning the next family compound. Sophia, 18, home from boarding school, was taking selfies with the silverware. I cleared my throat. I'm leaving Harvard. I'm starting an AI company. Cybersecurity for banks. I've already filed the LLC. The knife stopped moving. Dad didn't even look up at first. When he did, it was the same look he gave contractors who came in over budget. Isabella, coding is what employees do. Ross's own things. We don't sit in basements writing, whatever you call it. It's called the future, I said quietly. Dominic snorted. The future? Sweetie, the future is the new marina development in Nantucket, not some nerd fantasy. Mom reached for my hand. Darling, you're just confused. All that time in the library. No sun, no dates. You'll feel better after a summer in Tuscany. Sophia finally glanced up from her phone. Can we talk about something that isn't boring? I remember standing there with $8,000 in my checking account, every penny I'd ever saved from birthdays and babysitting, and feeling the walls close in. Dad laid the knife down. You walk out that door. You do it without the Rossi name and without a cent from this family. You'll crawl back in 6 months when your little algorithm fails. I looked at each of them, really looked. And then I picked up my backpack and left. I never asked for a dime again. That first night, I slept on a futon in a co-working space in Cambridge because rent was cheaper than an apartment. The bathroom had a keypad lock and a 2-minute shower timer. I told myself it was character building. The next 4 years were a slow-motion car crash I kept steering through. I taught myself machine learning from YouTube at 3 a.m., between cold coffee and crying in the stairwell. I maxed out 4 credit cards to keep the servers running. I lost 20 pounds because ramen is cheaper in bulk. Twice. Investors laughed me out of the room when they saw I was 24 and had no co-founder with a Stanford degree. One guy actually said, "Come back when you have a man on the team." Every Christmas, Dominic would text the family group chat, "Still playing with your little computer toys?" Mom would forward me articles about quarter-life crises. Dad mailed me job listings for junior analyst positions at banks, with a post-it that just said, "Real work." I stopped opening the messages after a while. By year 5, something shifted. I finally cracked an algorithm that could spot fraudulent wire transfers in 30 milliseconds, faster than any system the big banks had. Bank of America signed a pilot contract. Then JP Morgan. Then the FDIC itself came knocking for something classified. I moved the company out of the co-working space and into a real office in Seaport. Hired my first 10 employees, most of them women who'd been told the same lies I had. And I changed my public name to Isabella Harper, my maternal grandmother's maiden name. No more Rossi, no more Google alerts for my family to stalk. Forbes put me on the 30 under 30 list when I was 29. Last month, 31 now. They put me on the cover. The headline read, "The woman who made banks trust more than the Fed." I never sent a copy home. I didn't think I needed to. I was wrong. Because 3 weeks after that Forbes cover hit the stands, my little sister Sophia, now 27, 1.8 million TikTok followers, living in a Back Bay condo paid for by Daddy's trust fund, posted a screenshot of the magazine on her Instagram story with the caption, "Lol, when your sister actually made it? Still not inviting her to the wedding though." Within 6 hours the family group chat exploded. I wasn't in it anymore. But screenshots travel fast. "Dad, she used our connections to get there. That company belongs to the Rossi legacy." "Dominic, she borrowed money from the family office in 2018 and never paid it back. I have the wire records." "Mom, we should at least be on the board. It's only fair." They never called me to congratulate. They called their lawyers. 6 days later, a process server showed up at Quantum Shield headquarters with 187 pages of pure fiction. The claim: in 2018 I had borrowed $45 million from the Rossi family trust to keep the company afloat. The proof: a promissory note with my forged signature, backdated transfer records, even fake emails from an address that looked like mine but ended in at rossifamilyoffice.co instead of .com. They demanded immediate repayment plus interest, or full forfeiture of my 87% ownership in Quantum Shield. If I didn't comply within 10 days, they would seek an emergency federal injunction to freeze every corporate account and install Dominic as interim CEO to protect family assets. I read the filing in my office. Door closed, blinds down. My CFO, Priya, walked in and found me laughing, not the happy kind. "They really think I'm still the 22-year-old who walked out with $8,000 and a dream," I said. Priya raised an eyebrow. "So what do we do?" I looked out at the 280 people working on the floor below me, people who believed in me when I had nothing. "We let them schedule the hearing," I said, "and then we bury them with the truth." The court date was set for a Thursday morning in March. 9 years almost to the day since I'd walked out of that dining room. I wore the same black suit I'd worn to my grandmother Harper's funeral, simple, quiet, expensive enough that no one could call it cheap, but nothing flashy. Dominic showed up in head-to-toe Brioni, like he was attending a victory party. That's when we walked back into Judge Carter's courtroom, and she recognized my name from the cover of Forbes. The morning of the hearing, the courtroom smelled like old wood and panic. Dominic strode in first, nodding at reporters like he was already giving interviews. Mom wore black Chanel and a veil, yes, an actual veil, as if someone had died. Dad had his concerned patriarch face on, the one he used for zoning board meetings. I sat alone at the defendant's table with just me and 2 bankers' boxes full of evidence. No tears, no theatrics. The bailiff called the room to order. Judge Carter took the bench. She opened the file, scanned the first page, and did that pen freeze thing I told you about. Then she looked up, slowly, and deliberately, at Dominic's lawyer. "Mr. Langford, before we begin, I need to disclose something for the record." The lawyer smiled the confident smile of a man who thought he'd bought the judge along with everything else. Judge Carter continued, voice like winter. 2 years ago, I wrote a letter of recommendation for Miss Harper when Forbes was vetting her for their cover. I've also been an unpaid advisory board member for Quantum Shield's ethics committee since 2021. Do you or your clients have any objection to me remaining on this case? You could have heard a pin drop on carpet. Dominic's lawyer turned the color of skim milk. No, Your Honor, no objection. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Judge Carter nodded. Good, because I intend to get to the bottom of this today. She turned to me. Miss Harper, you may remain seated for now. Mr. Langford, you may proceed with your emergency petition. And that's when the first little domino fell. Langford started reading the forged promissory note out loud. All $45 million of it. When the courtroom doors opened again, two men in dark suits walked in. One flashed a badge so quickly only the front row saw it. FBI. Financial crimes. Judge Carter didn't even blink. She simply said, Agents, please take a seat. You're expected. Dominic actually stood up. Your Honor, what is this? This, she said, is what happens when you try to defraud a company that has classified contracts with the United States Treasury. The second domino. Dominic's mouth opened and closed like a fish that just realized the water was gone. Mom let out this tiny, wounded gasp and clutched Dad's arm. Dad looked suddenly 10 years older. Judge Carter leaned forward. Mr. Langford, I'm going to ask you one time. And I strongly suggest you answer carefully. Did your clients inform you that Quantum Shield Analytics holds active contracts with the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation and the Department of the Treasury? Contracts that are considered critical infrastructure under the Patriot Act? Langford's voice cracked. They mentioned banking clients. Your Honor, but you didn't think to verify before filing a petition that, if granted, would have handed control of those contracts to individuals with no security clearance? Langford had no words left. Judge Carter turned to the FBI agents. Gentlemen, your timing is impeccable. The taller agent stood. Your Honor, we've been monitoring the filing since it hit Pacer. Attempting to seize a cleared defense contractor through fraudulent means triggers a national security review. We're here to take custody of the original documents and any individuals the court deems necessary. Dominic shot to his feet. This is insane. She's my sister. That money is rightfully. Sit down. Judge Carter's voice cut like glass. He sat. Then came the moment I'd waited 9 years for. I finally stood. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to play a short recording. Judge Carter nodded. Proceed. I pressed play on the laptop my assistant had wheeled in. The courtroom speakers crackled for half a second. Then Dominic's own voice, 17 years old, drunk on Dad's Macallan after my high school graduation, filled the room. If Izzy ever actually makes something of herself, I swear I'll find a way to take it from her. She doesn't get to embarrass this family and then win. You could hear him laugh. The same laugh he used in the hallway this morning. The recording was date-stamped, pulled from the old security system in the Beacon Hill house that Dad never bothered to wipe when he upgraded. Dominic's face went from red to gray. Mom actually whispered, Oh my God. Judge Carter removed her glasses slowly. Mr. Rossi, she said to my brother. Anything you'd like to say before I rule? He couldn't even look at me. The silence lasted so long I could hear Mom's pearls clicking as her hand shook. Judge Carter didn't wait any longer. Mr. Dominic Rossi, stand up. He did, legs unsteady. Based on the evidence presented, the forged promissory note, the fabricated wire transfers, the backdated emails, and your own recorded statement of intent, I am denying the petition in its entirety. I am also finding probable cause for federal wire fraud, bank fraud, attempted extortion, and conspiracy to interfere with a protected government contractor. She turned to the agents. Take him into custody. The click of the handcuffs was the loudest sound I've ever heard in my life. Dominic finally looked at me, really looked, while the agent read him his rights. There was no smirk left. Just a 35-year-old man realizing his entire future had just ended in the same room where he thought he'd destroy mine. Mom started sobbing for real this time. Dad stared straight ahead, like if he didn't move, the moment wouldn't be real. Judge Carter wasn't finished. Mrs. Eleanor Rossi, she said, voice softer but somehow colder. You signed an affidavit stating you personally witnessed the defendant repay the $45 million loan. Would you like to revise that statement now, under oath, or shall I add perjury to today's charges? Mom's mouth opened, closed. She looked at Dad. He didn't look back. I was mistaken, Your Honor, she whispered. Mistaken, Judge Carter repeated. Noted. She turned to me, and for the first time all morning her face softened. Miss Harper, on behalf of this court, I apologize that you were forced to defend yourself against your own family. The record will reflect that this petition was fraudulent from its first page to its last. Quantum Shield Analytics will suffer no liens, no freezes, no interruptions. You're free to go. I managed a quiet, thank you, Your Honor, and that was it. I walked out of that courtroom without looking back. But the story didn't end when the doors closed behind me. The fallout came fast and merciless. Within 48 hours, the U.S. Attorney's Office unsealed the indictment. Dominic took a plea, 7 years in federal prison, no parole for the first 5. The judge made it clear at sentencing, trying to steal a company that protects the American financial system isn't just fraud. It's borderline terrorism. The Rossi real estate empire started bleeding the day the news hit Bloomberg. Tenants in their trophy buildings threatened to break leases. Banks called in lines of credit. 2 of the biggest developments in the seaport got frozen when the city suddenly re-examined permits. Dad had to liquidate the Beacon Hill house at a fire sale price just to cover margins. Last I heard, he was living in a 2-bedroom condo in the suburbs, the kind of place he used to call starter homes for people who never started. Mom sends emails every few months from a new address. They always start the same. Your brother is very sorry. I let them go to the spam folder unread. Sophia lost every brand deal overnight. Her follower count is still high, but the comments are brutal. She moved to Florida and now sells real estate licenses online. And Quantum Shield? We just closed our Series D at a $4.2 billion valuation. We opened a second headquarters in Austin, broke ground on a research campus in Pittsburgh, and the Treasury contract was renewed for another 10 years. But the part that actually matters, the part that keeps me going on the hard days, happened 6 months after the trial. I set up the Harper Foundation with a $100 million endowment. Every year we give full-ride scholarships and seed grants to kids who've been told by their own families that their dreams are stupid, STEM girls from trailer parks, first-gen boys who code in public libraries, trans teens whose parents threw them out for wanting to study engineering. Last week we hit our 1,000th recipient. And 3 months ago I had a son. Leo Harper. He has my grandmother's eyes and absolutely zero idea that the Rossi name ever existed. Sometimes, late at night when the city is quiet, I carry him to the window of the penthouse I bought with my own money, 42 floors above the streets I used to sleep under, and I whisper the only inheritance I ever planned to give him. Some people will try to make you smaller so they can feel taller. Your job is to grow anyway. And when you do, you don't owe them a single explanation. He's too little to understand yet, but one day he will. The family I was born into tried to bury me in federal court. Instead, they buried themselves. And every kid we lift up now is proof that love isn't a bloodline. It's who shows up, who believes, who refuses to let you fall. That's the only legacy I need.